Ooh, yeah, snap into a Slim Jim. And welcome to the 3 Count podcast at our SummerSlam 92 retro recap. I'm Dylan Chambers. With me, as always, is Benny the Brain Hobden. Welcome, Benny.
G'day, guys. How are we? G'day, Dill. What's going on, mate?
Oh, just enjoying lockdown life, watching all that the WWE network has to offer and binging a million different shows.
Yep, know the feeling. Lockdown life, as you can see, mate, it's getting a bit out of hand.
Yeah, I need a haircut.
But you probably need to go to Just for Men next week at this rate, I think, won't
you? Maybe.
Oh, a little stab there. Why not?
Oh, we've established who the heel is. Now, Benny, before we jump in the DeLorean and head back to 1992, what's been going on in the world of wrestling?
Mate, a few things. Well, first of all, let's start with all the releases from WWE. I'll just rattle off a few that I've written down here. Obviously, Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, gone. That was a big one.
Huge.
I texted you straight away. I think it was at 3 a.m. I noticed it come up and I was like, what's going on? This is crazy. Yes. American Twitter, thank you. Ric Flair's gone. Bobby Fish, Killian Dane, Mercedes Martinez, Leon Ruff, Bollywood Boys. And then our very own Aussie, Bronson Reed. He wasn't happy. He's come out he's given a bit of a jab, but I mean, that was a big one, I thought.
So odd. They gave him a push. He got the North American title, then he lost it and they got rid of him.
Well, yeah, I've heard that, through the little wire, I've heard that Vince wasn't real happy with his main tryout to come up to the main card. So that's why. But I've also heard that Triple H and Shawn Michaels didn't even know anything about it. Didn't know that he was getting released.
Tension in the ranks there.
Well, that leads me to my next thing, which is that there's lots of rumblings that Triple H is taking the blame for all the failings of NXT at the moment. So I don't know what's going on there. I can't see him getting the boot in any way. Obviously, he's married to the daughter.
He's married into it.
But when there's smoke, there's fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they took
going on.
They took a shot when they were going up against Dynamite and losing in the ratings. So
they definitely lost the Wednesday Night Wars. That's for sure. But
the short-lived Wednesday Night Wars.
What's that?
The very short-lived Wednesday Night Wars.
True. Another little thing. Obviously, Adam Cole, baby. What's going on? What's your thoughts?
Well, so there's lots of rumors swirling about. His contract finished. He signed an extension to bring it to TakeOver. So he wanted to finish off his trilogy with Kyle O'Reilly. Contract's up. Supposedly had a meeting with Vince at SmackDown. Apparently parties were happy, but nothing's been announced. So if his contract ends, he can go and wrestle anywhere straight away.
No compete clause or anything like that.
There's a no compete clause. His girlfriend, Britt Baker, is the women's champion in AEW. So who knows? I think my pick is that WWE are going to re-sign him and he's going to debut on the main roster.
Fingers crossed. Well, I think he has to stay. If he goes, leads me to my next thing, Daniel Bryan and CM Punk both going to AEW. That's 3 massive names going to AEW. They're really going to make a push there if they take those 3.
That would be huge. And Rampage, which just debuted the other day, is from the United Center, I believe, next week in Chicago. So will we see CM Punk?
Hey, that's the rumor. Speaking of Rampage, your boy.
Christian.
Good old won the heavyweight title off Kenny.
Yeah, debut match on AEW Rampage, won the Impact Championship.
Yes.
So Kenny Omega's still got a few other titles, including the AEW World Championship. But yes, the Impact World title. And Christian obviously had a great career at TNA as well. So
he did. Yeah, it's probably fitting that he won that title.
I think so as well.
We were both a couple of peeps from back in the day. So
That's right.
It was good to see. And Kenny's other titles, he put another one up on the line in Mexico during the weekend.
That he did.
Which led to Ric Flair showing up, helping out his son-in-law. What's going on there?
Andrade El Idol.
Is that? I couldn't pronounce it. I didn't try. I thought you'd do that, mate.
Yeah, Ric Flair came out and was his manager for the match. He did not take the championship away from Kenny.
No, he didn't. But it was good to see him with his son-in-law. So that's interesting. Will he go to AEW as well?
Soon.
What's that?
Will Charlotte jump ship soon?
Oh, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
No, she wants to beat her dad's title reign at WWE. So
that's true. They shouldn't give it to her because once she gets it, then she'll leave.
Well, that's fair, yeah. But the way she's going, she wins it and loses it in a day or two anyway. So she'll probably have it by the end of October.
Yeah, that's true.
Before we get out of lockdown, I reckon.
The only
what else have I
other,
got here? Anything else? Oh, I seen a little report about Keith Lee. It was not good. Look, he filled us in while he was out so long. He had COVID and led to a couple of health problems. That wasn't real good.
yeah, and he passed it on to Mia Yim too, I believe. So,
well, that's his wife, yeah.
Yeah.
So the reasoning was she wouldn't leave his side.
Oh,
isn't love grand?
Isn't it beautiful?
But other than that, mate, that's all I've got for this week in the news. Have you got anything else going on?
The only other thing I have is reports that King of the Ring will return and we will see Queen of the Ring.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Reports are that will start in about October, with the finals possibly happening in Saudi Arabia at a big WWE show. So,
nice.
Yeah, Queen of the Ring.
If Charlotte doesn't win Queen of the Ring, can she still use the same moniker she's used for so long?
I guess not.
Well, then that leads to whoever does win it, they fight it off.
No, she has changed now, though, isn't she? Maybe because it's coming up. What's she calling herself at the moment?
Yeah. I haven't heard her being called the Queen for a while, so.
No.
That'll be interesting. And then good old Xavier Woods always wants to go for the King. He's been pushing it for so long on his socials and stuff like that. So
King Woods.
I bet you they don't give it to him, but
King Woods, I can just see it.
And then other than that, get into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so it's time to get into it. SummerSlam 1992. Benny, what were you doing in 1992?
Mate, I was 8 years old. I was watching wrestling. Well, yeah, 93 is my earliest memory of buying a VHS, which was WrestleMania 9. So this was just before that, but I've definitely seen it all and that kind of stuff. So it's just sort of a quick reminisce, I think.
I mean, going back to it, I hadn't seen it in a long, long time. I think the last time I saw it was the first time I saw it, which would have been probably maybe 2 or 3 years later, renting it from Video Easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how we did it. There was nothing. How else could we watch it?
That was the only way to watch pay-per-views back in the day, renting it from the video store, and I rented the crap out of a lot of those Silverstone or whatever they were videos.
Old school.
Now, SummerSlam 92 was the 5th annual SummerSlam event, was the first pay-per-view to ever be held outdoors, and also the first to be not held in North America.
Wembley.
Coming live from Wembley Stadium in London.
Speaking of which, hang on one second. Let me just
look out.
Speaking of SummerSlam 92. Boom.
The main event.
The main event.
I love it. That's a cracker of a shirt.
Throwback.
Yeah, it was the first SummerSlam to not feature Hulk Hogan. And I know he wasn't in the main event and he's not on your shirt, but it was the last SummerSlam appearance for the Ultimate Warrior. There were two dark matches held. There was Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Bushwhackers took on the Mountie and the Nasty Boys, as well as old Papa Shango took on El Matador, a.k.a. Tito Santana. There was also a match between Tatanka and the Berserker, but that was cut from the pay-per-view due to time constraints.
It was later in the pay-per-view, wasn't it?
It was. It was getting towards the main event.
Yeah.
It was a very English start to it. You know, they had the medieval trumpeters and lots of shots of London landmarks and all the fans giving their 2 cents. Did you catch the young bloke who said the British Bulldog's going to win whether he wants to or not?
I thought I misheard it, to be honest. I was like, what is he going on about?
I went back and listened to it to make sure that's what he said. So
yeah. And of course they had to chuck in good old Lord Alfred Hayes over there with his brilliant British accent.
Yeah.
Backstage. How funny was that? I thought he was David Attenborough half the time going through backstage. If you look here, you will find. It was gold.
It was classic. And we kicked things off with Vince and Bobby the Brain Heenan, who was wearing a bit of a familiar gimmick to us WWE fans. He had a crown, just a bit pre-king, but...
And how many times did Vince tell him to take it off? Oh, the jabs was just non-stop.
He was not happy about it. Our first match of the evening was the Legion of Doom, Animal and Hawk, with Paul Ellering versus Money Inc., which was Ted DiBiase and Erwin R. Shyster with Jimmy Hart. Money Inc. were the first to come out. Erwin R. Shyster gets on the mic and tells the British they're tax cheats. They put too much pressure on the royal family.
It was brilliant.
It was classic. What? Now Benny Shyster, can you tell me who Erwin R. Shyster is for for those current WWE.
Yes, mate. It'd be the guy who we just spoke about being released, Bray Wyatt's father.
Yes, Mike Rotunda, the father of Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas.
Yeah.
Then we see one of the famous SummerSlam entrances. You see LOD coming out on the motorbikes. Hawk seemed a little shaky at the back, but did look pretty badass.
Yeah, well, he wasn't real well at that stage, I don't think.
So I was just going to get into it. If you haven't caught them all yet, go do yourself a favor, go on to SBS On Demand and binge watch all of Dark Side of the Ring. They're brilliant. And there's an episode on the Road Warriors, and we find out that Legion of Doom were supposed to be wrestling for the tag team titles at SummerSlam. But Hawk was inebriated before the pay-per-view, and Vince changed it, and they were moved to the first match. Yeah. Apparently, he was going in and out of consciousness, so
not good.
Bit sketchy there.
Yeah, that's why there was actually halfway through the match, Bobby the Brain turns around and goes, "Hawk, he looks more like a dirty pigeon." I thought it was one of the best lines I've ever heard. I was just like, wow, what a stab considering the state he was in. So
yeah, not good. So Paul Ellering is the manager, and he came out with a dummy. The dummy called Rocco.
Rocco? Yeah.
I tried to look into a bit of what Rocco was all about, and apparently they gave them the Rocco gimmick in an attempt to make Legion of Doom more accessible to children.
Well, they probably were just going to try and sell a few Rocco dolls and that kind of stuff.
I think
that doesn't sound like something WWE would do with a doll.
No. So at the start of the match, Hawk didn't sell much, which is not surprising, seeing as the state he was in. Most of the match just seemed to be Shyster and DiBiase working on him, making sure Animal couldn't get in. I wonder if that was kind of the plan, as he didn't have to put much offense in, and he wasn't much of a danger to anyone. Eventually, Animal got the hot tag, managed to get Shyster out. They set DiBiase up for a doomsday device. Shyster got back in, delivered a drop kick. Then they got Shyster out again, and Animal finished DiBiase off with a simple power slam. Which
power slam.
Apparently,
so surprising.
Apparently, he makes a look at Vince, and Vince was not happy about it.
Yeah, right.
How do you rate that match, Benny?
With all that was going on, look, as you said, Money Inc. did most of the offense and that kind of stuff after the hot tag. That was about it. I was kind of a Money Inc. fan. I actually liked Money Inc. back in the day. I've always been a heelish kind of a guy, though. As
money.
Both entrance music is this is no word of a lie. At least once every 2 weeks, somewhere in that fortnight, I always go, "What a rush!" Something that's going on in my life. It's a catchphrase for me in my life. So that's scary that was their theme song. When they came out, I was like, "Oh, that's where it's from." I completely forgot. So that was a good little thing back there. But I only gave the match a 1.5 count, mate, which is probably generous.
1.5. Wow, that is generous. I gave it a 0.5 count. Hawk obviously looked lost. I thought it was a terrible ending.
Yeah, the ending was real bad. Probably should have taken another point off for that, to be fair. But you got to remember, back in the day, simple moves were finished moves as well, though.
That's true. That's true.
It wasn't even a very, compared to some of the power slams you see, it wasn't even a good one. So
yeah. Do you think they got the finish right?
Okay, this is my thing. It was a hot babyface crowd. They're in the UK. They have to go all babyface. It's a running thread through the whole pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So I think they got the finish right because the fans were so pro LOD. But it was disappointing.
I absolutely agree with you. They wanted to kick off SummerSlam with a bang. They were the clear fan favorites, so they did what they needed to do, and didn't hurt anyone.
No, of course not. No. Well, so on that, our running theme, then, who had the better careers?
I am going with DiBiase. He's still around. He's in an NXT storyline right now.
Exactly. Yeah, on Takeover this weekend, he's actually he's involved in it. So I said exactly the same thing. LOD were massive, but WCW massive.
Yeah.
As the Road Warriors. So and IRS had a little singles run, but he was good. But yeah, overall, Ted DiBiase.
That's right.
Prior to that, and then afterwards as well, he's still around. So
still around. He still looks pretty good too.
Yeah, he still looks fit. Well, he's probably put on a few, but hey, he's probably been in quarantine like me, like my head compared to our first one.
Can't do much but eat and drink. So next up, we see Mean Gene. He's interviewing Ric Flair about how he didn't get a title shot at SummerSlam. And this running theme throughout the pay-per-view is whose corner is Mr. Perfect going to be in? It made me realize they don't really have one anymore. But Mean Gene, he's like a school teacher, like, and now the backstage, interviewers are very, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?
Yeah.
They don't really have much personality. I think it'd be great to have someone else come in who's like that school teacher, like, I can't believe you said that, or what do you think you're doing out there, like Mean Gene used to be.
Yeah, he cut him off. He'd be like, whoa, hang on a second, you can't say that. Like, he sort of get into him and stuff. So the only thing that pissed me off a little bit was the fact that Rick didn't do the mean, woo, Bagaji. That's what I was waiting for the whole time.
Yeah, love you, Mean Gene.
Yeah.
And then we saw a quick interview with Virgil before he took on Nails, which leads us to our next match, Virgil versus Nails, the Blockbuster.
Don't forget, Virgil is too legit
to quit.
I had to laugh at that. I was like, wow.
In all honesty, so when this match started, I didn't remember the Nails character.
I looked him up, not going to lie.
And I was surprised because he's huge and he had the prisoner gimmick was kind of cool. I mean, he had a rivalry going with Big Boss Man, which made sense.
Yeah.
And Virgil was Boss Man's ally, so that all made sense. Another surprise for me was that Virgil got a pretty good babyface pop.
He did, yeah. He really did. That was weird.
Pretty over.
They booed Nails like no tomorrow when they introduced him in the ring. Already in the ring, Nails.
Yeah. Now, there wasn't much to it. Nails seemed pretty green. Wasn't much of a wrestling match. It was all physicality. Yeah. The match finished with Nails winning by submission after choking Virgil out. Then grabbed the nightstick and attacked Virgil with it after the match.
Yeah. Terrible match.
Half a count, I gave it.
Yeah, I didn't even give it a count.
If you could call it a match.
Yeah, the ref didn't even get down on his hands and knees to give the count on for me. So
no.
I get the whole, and then he obviously beat him down with the nightstick afterwards, which led to Survivor Series. Nails and Bossman then had a nightstick match. So I see what they were doing there, just sort of tying it all in. But yeah, it was terrible. Nails didn't do much after that.
Well, so Nails, aka Kevin Wacoltz, he ended up getting fired a few months after that. He attacked Vince McMahon over his pay for SummerSlam. He then appeared in WCW not too long later as The Prisoner, but they let him go because WWF sued WCW because the gimmick was much too close to the Nails character. He wasn't a fan of Vince, and he testified against Vince in the 1994 steroid trial.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, not a big fan of Vince at all. Did they get the finish right, Benny?
Did it matter?
No, not really.
No, exactly. Obviously, Virgil went on to join the NWO, so he clearly had a better career.
That's where we're going. Virgil is an easy pick.
Well, he was actually Vincent then as well. Let's not forget that.
The NWO's head of security. That's a pretty big title.
Because he did go on to be Ted DiBiase's right-hand man for a while there as well.
Yeah.
So, he was in and around the card.
He's been around. He was stuck around for a long time. So now
he's recently just come out and said that he made Hogan as well. Did you see that?
Oh, wow.
And he also charged Brooke Hogan, Hollywood Hogan's daughter, for a photo and an autograph. And she said, I'm Brooke Hogan, I'm Hulk Hogan's daughter. And he just turns around and goes, I don't care, I made your father. Pay me or I'm not taking the photo.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was all over Twitter about 2 weeks ago. It was pretty funny.
Virgil, badass. All right, after that match, we then cut to your friend Lord Alfred Hayes investigating where Mr. Perfect is. He can't get into Macho Man's dressing room, which is where he's looking at. We then see Mean Gene, and he interviews Sensational Sherry, takes us through a bit of the rivalry between Shawn Michaels and the model, Rick Martell. There's a bit of a Rick trying to steal Sherry away from Shawn. And she says she'll stay right by her man. Whatever.
Yeah, but she didn't say who her man was.
She did not.
Let's not forget, she also winked at Martell. So
that's right. So next up, we see Shawn Michaels with Sensational Sherry against the model Rick Martell. Model already in the ring, didn't get a grand entrance on the pay-per-view. had a tennis racket and tennis gear on. Bit of a shout out to Wimbledon, which was interesting.
Yeah, and then Brain turns around and goes, "Screw you, Andre Agassi." And then Martell comes over and says that through the ropes, and Vince is like, "Did he hear you?" It was really weird. Like,
very odd.
That wasn't planned, I don't think. That was just happened to happen.
We then see Shawn Michaels coming out wearing the smallest sunglasses I've ever seen, and one of the most wonderful mullets, with Sherry holding a mirror, which was his gimmick at the time. One thing that really struck me was who was singing Shawn Michaels' entrance music.
I thought it sounded different, but I didn't know who it was.
It was a female singing it, and it was Sensational Sherry.
There you go. Makes sense. And her outfit as well was very reminiscent of an outfit that Shawn would have worn. It tied in pretty well, I thought.
It was. Now, a great gimmick for the match. No hitting in the face.
That's the kind of match you and I'd have.
Oh yeah,
these beautiful features.
Keep these good looks. I thought it was great. There was some great back and forth. Both guys cocking back, ready to hit each other in the face, and then having to stop themselves. There's a great spot with several roll-ups, one after the other, each of them grabbing each other's tights. Vince proclaiming that there's more moons in London than any other planet, which is interesting. Both men slapped each other, and as they're about to punch each other, Sherry faints. Both men try to help her out. Michaels ends up hitting Martell, and both men get counted out as they brawl.
When she passed out, Martell tried to give her CPR. What was with that? He was giving a chest compression.
Well, they were hamming it up, that's for sure. And we can see at one point that Sherry's faking it, but she continues the charade on. They both fight to carry her to the back. Martell ends up going into the back, grabbing a bucket of water and dousing Sherry and Shawn Michaels and waking her up as Michaels chases into the back. What'd you think, Benny?
She took about 4 bumps on the way down that ramp as well. And just on that, can I just mention that ramp? That ramp was humongous. That was like, it would have been nearly 1 kilometer long by the look of it.
It was
huge. But yeah, it was pretty funny. It was good, fun sort of match, like, but because they're both really heels essentially.
Yeah. So it's also apparently one of the first big heel versus heel pay-per-view matches.
Yeah, okay, makes sense, because back then they never used to do anything like that.
No.
And yeah, it was a bit more comedic than anything else.
Yeah.
So look, I didn't mind it. I gave it 1.5 count as well.
I gave it 1.5 count. It was entertaining, great back and forth, good little story going through there.
When she got picked up and her butt was hanging out, Vince made another one. Is that Jupiter with one of their moons? Just, he couldn't help himself.
Full of them, Vince. Apparently later on, Sherry claimed that she created the rivalry to test Shawn's love.
Well, they did stay together because she was by his side at WrestleMania 9.
Yeah, but it did end not too long later when Shawn grabbed one of those, had her attacked by Marty Jannetty. He got out of the way of an attack, threw her in front of him, and didn't last too much longer after that. Did they get the finish right, Benny?
Well, for the crowd, yeah, I guess there was no babyface to cheer. So who would they have cheered if there was a winner? Well, the crowd wouldn't have known.
My pick was they didn't, because I think it should have had a winner. In hindsight, it probably doesn't matter who, but they were kind of pumping up Shawn at the time. Maybe he could have done with it. And the feud kind of ended not too long after then. So
I guess that makes sense.
Benny, I'm putting you on the spot here. Best career.
The model by far. Nah, look, the model hung around. He was in and around the mid card for quite a bit, more late 80s into the early 90s. But obviously HBK, one of the greatest of all times. Still making his way in the solo single scene back then and that kind of stuff. But
what was interesting is Sherry's last name is Martell, right? And they're not related in any way.
There's definitely something they could have done there.
I think he did a podcast saying, I don't know why she chose that name. You know, he was around at the time. Very interesting. Martell did at one point though win the World Television Championship for Booker T in WCW. So
there you go. There was talk that for him for Hall of Fame 2022.
Yeah, he was around for a while and he was good.
Yeah,
but you know,
him and who did he have the big rival with? You mentioned he had a dark match earlier.
Oh, Papa Shango.
No, the late dark match.
What? Sorry, what was that?
You know the late dark match that you said that didn't happen?
Tatanka.
Oh, no, Tito Santana. It was Tito Santana and Rick Martell. They had a bit of a feud, quite a bit.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Too long ago, mate. I was 8. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. That's the fun of these. That's the fun of these.
The next bit here was when they went backstage, yeah? Is that the next thing you're going to say?
Yeah, with the Nasty Boys.
What were they on?
I don't know.
That was crazy.
They were definitely on something. Basically, the point of the interview was that they didn't get a title shot, and Jimmy Hart told them that they will get one.
Well, he said Money Inc. next, and then he went, oh no, okay, yeah, you guys will get a title shot. So that was weird, but they were on something hard. That was weird.
Yeah. There's no doubt they were. I think a lot of people were back then.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
Next up, we had the WWF World Tag Team Title match, the Natural Disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon, against the Beverly Brothers, Bo and Blake with the Genius. Now, Ben, did you remember the Beverly Brothers?
Did not remember the Beverly Brothers, but funnily enough, they popped up in my search history this week because one of their sons was a security guard for the NXT face-off between Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly during the week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it literally popped up, son of Beverly Brothers. And then obviously I did the research and watched this and was like, there you go. What are the chances of that?
Very intriguing.
So one of their sons is in and around the NXT scene.
How cool. So their gimmick is that they're stuck-up rich boys. They're accompanied by the Genius, who spouts out a poem before the match. Now, fun fact, the Genius, his real name is Lanny Poffo, which would make him the younger brother of Randy Savage.
Oh, yeah.
So the Natural Disasters then make their way to the ring. Some big boys.
Yeah, Earthquake and Typhoon.
Big boys, terrible outfits.
Yeah, they should have done something about that. Speaking of outfits, the Beverly Brothers, you see those outfits at the beginning?
The purple?
Well, yeah. Now, if you made those green, was that where WCW got the idea for Kevin Nash's Oz? Because I'm telling you, those shoulder pads and the way that really went straight down, it was exactly the same as Oz's character. The stars and stuff on it and everything.
Well, would Oz have been before or after that?
No, Oz didn't happen until like 94, 90.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, it would have been around the same time.
There you go. Maybe they just had the same tailor.
Yeah, fair enough.
So the match started off. There's a lot of sandwiches by the Disasters. Some classic dastardly heel tactics by the Beverly Brothers, including a distraction.
I'd say.
A distraction to Earthquake to allow them to hit Typhoon with the metal scroll from the Genius. Earthquake ended up getting the hot tag, hit Bo with an Earthquake splash, where he does the little jump around him, like make him look like he's in an earthquake, and then gets the pin. I gave it a 1 count. I thought it was a pretty bad finish, but the match wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I gave it 1 as well. The thing is, obviously, it wasn't meant to be for the titles. They weren't even meant to be in the match, as we spoke about before with LOD. So it's obviously being thrown together. It is what it is. You've got to appreciate that they've done something.
That's true. For a throw together match, it was pretty good. And I did think they got the finish right. Yeah,
definitely got
Disasters, a formidable threat. I don't think the Beverly Brothers would have been so over with the belts.
Well, they were baby faces again, the running theme that we talked about at the time. Yeah. Well, they weren't really, but they were.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's kind of weird. But they were. They were just badass baby faces.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll go on to who had the better career. Well, obviously, we don't know who the Beverly Brothers were, so you have to say Earthquake out of everything.
Yeah. John Tenta, a.k.a. Earthquake, was my pick.
But, I mean, Typhoon, he did have an infamous moment as the Shockmaster.
Oh, yes.
Let's not forget that. So Typhoon had a good early career because he was in and around all that scene with Hulk Hogan. He was on a Survivor Series team with Hogan at one stage, and then he ended up turning on Hogan, joining Earthquake, and that's how Earthquake and Hogan started going at it. So, yeah. I mean, he was in and around the upper mid-card there at one stage in the early 90s.
I mean, for both of them, that was the only time they held the WWF Tag Team Championships. But Tenta, he had a long career at WWF, WCW, on the Indies. But
he was even. Are you going to go and say it?
I'm going to say, as for biggest moments, though.
Yeah.
Blake Beverly.
Yeah.
AKA Mike Enos. He was having a match on WCW Nitro which was interrupted by Scott Hall, which was the first time we ever saw Scott Hall on WCW television kicking off the NWA.
You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
So poor old Blake Beverly.
There you go. I didn't know that. Short. Was he the one that got the shits and like walked out of the ring and didn't know it was a shoot? Like
probably.
Yeah, right.
So there you go. John Tender's my pick.
Well, he was part of that. Was he the one that used to wear the South Park shirt with the gimp mask in the
Yes, I believe Golga. Yes.
Golga, yeah.
Yeah, he was.
So he extended his career for quite a bit of time there.
He certainly did. So
God rest his soul. There's quite a few of those in this.
There is a lot of those in this. So then we're treated to the Bushwhackers backstage with Mean Gene. We've got some comedy gold. With Gene
they were brilliant. Brilliant.
Gene saying there's a dentist trying to sell Luke a London bridge. And the boys telling Gene they're going to have a royal meal of sardines on royal china and then sit on the royal throne.
Royal throne. Yeah. No, it was brilliant. I thought it was hilarious.
Classic stuff from the Bushwhackers. We then see Lord Alfred Hayes again. This time he's outside Warriors' dressing room, trying to open the door to see if Mr. Perfect's in there, but he can't get in.
At this point, was this annoying you? This whole, it was just an underlying thing the whole way through it. And I think it took so much away from the main, from the title match.
They push this, whose corner is Perfect going to be on so much. Yeah. And it did get very tired very quickly.
Yeah. When we get to the match, I'll mention something else about it, but it was just frustrating the whole way through.
Yeah. Well, next up, though, we have Crush versus Repo Man. Repo Man's the first one out. He's got his burglar-looking gimmick going. We then see Crush, and as soon as he came out, I was like, I knew this is a guy that Vince would have loved.
Massive.
Huge, chiseled, long blonde hair. No, the orange and purple tights just made me think of Juice for some reason.
Juice, yeah, that was this because at this stage he was Kona Crush, I guess, wasn't he?
He was
the Hawaiian
from Hawaii, and that's actually where he is.
He is from Hawaii, yeah. But...
it was a squash match. Crush dominated, looked pretty good. Some impressive press slams and a backbreaker, and as you mentioned, he finished it off by submission by using a vice grip on the head called the cranium crunch.
Yeah.
One count, David. It was a squash match, but Crush did look great, so it worked.
He definitely looked good, yeah. Half a count for me, and I think they got it right because that was his first pay-per-view match. So I mean, they had to push him pretty hard if they were going to go with that.
That's right. He was getting the push, so they absolutely got it right. Best career.
So I've had a little write down here. So Crush went on to have a better career, in my opinion. But Repo Man had already had his best days behind him as one half of Demolition.
That's right.
His name was Smash. So essentially this match was Crush versus Smash, which is pretty interesting when you think about it.
It was. And I heard reports that he wasn't happy when they brought Crush into Demolition. Because he was the third member of Demolition.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's all intertwined there with those two.
It is.
But Repo, it's another one of those gimmicks that he went on, to be one of the greatest tag teams of all time in the late 80s, early 90s to then this.
Yeah. It was a bit weird. It was a bit of a fall from grace. The Repo Man was not a good
for quite a few years as well. He never did anything, but
no.
Speaking of Crush, though, he had a Falls Count Anywhere match against Macho Man at WrestleMania 10, which is one of my favorite matches growing up. I don't know why.
Right.
It was just a really good finish, and I always liked Crush for some reason. And then obviously he went on to be in the Nation of Domination as well.
Yep. NWO.
And Brian Adams in the NWO.
Yeah, and
so he's been part of Demolition, Nation of Domination, NWO. That's three big stables when you think about it.
Well, you're saying Chronic doesn't live up to those three stables.
Okay, that's fair.
Hey, they took on the Undertaker and Kane in a tag team match. So I liked Chronic back in the day in WCW. I thought they were good. And he was the Demon.
Was he?
He was the Demon in WCW. So
he's had quite a few then.
Yeah, he's definitely Brian Adams had the better career. We then go to it was strange having the WWF World Heavyweight title match not as the main event.
But they used to do that quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you look at a couple of the WrestleManias before and then even after, the title match was never the main event.
Yeah.
But obviously, we all know why it had to be this as the main event because British Bulldog.
That's right. So we have Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior still going on with this story of whose corner Mr. Perfect's going to be in. Warrior's the first one out with his trademark run and his music and the tights looking like meat.
He's clearly, you could tell that his body obviously wasn't as good as what it used to be, because even in the promo and everything else, he started wearing that full one piece with the muscles and everything on the tights.
Yeah.
To make it look like he looked better than what he actually obviously was looking. Because on his first run, he obviously didn't need that. He used to just wear the dick stickers.
It just made me think that he did it before Lady Gaga did.
I'm not going to be able to look at it the same every year. So, yeah, okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reports that we know he was not a great wrestler. He did not try to learn to be a great wrestler, but he was over. He was
massively. Again, but this was both baby faces as well, this one.
Yeah.
The thing for me, the iconic music of the Macho, that music is just brilliant when he walks
out.
He
that gave me goosebumps. That
just sort of does the hands and he walks and he just sort of looks around. It just
he got such a pop. It was incredible. Savage's pink and yellow floral tights too. The best.
When they got in the ring and they had the stare off, it was like a tassel off. I didn't know who had more tassels hanging off them. It was just those back in that day. It was just brilliant.
So they got into it. I mean, during the match, you can see there's no question Warrior was strong, but all of the moves were the same. Picking up and dropping Savage onto his knee in different forms.
Yeah. Gee, they loved a double axe handle off the top rope back then, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it reminded me of Ready to Rumble with the King, because that was his move.
It was.
I will rule you. That's all I could think the whole time I was watching it.
Well, all the technical moves, they're all done by Savage. Eventually, Flair and Perfect come down the aisle. They stand and watch for a while until Perfect grabs Savage's leg and trips him. Warrior then takes charge. This classic ref bump as Warrior flings Savage into poor old Earl Hebner.
Earl Hebner took a few bumps in this one.
He's taken a lot of bumps in his time, poor old Earl. Warrior, he looked to have it after a top rope hammer, but there's no ref to count it. Once Hebner comes back, Savage kicks out. Warrior argues. We see another ref bump as Savage pushes Warrior into Hebner now and goes to the outside. We see a pile driver, which we don't see anymore these days.
No, you can thank Owen Hart for those.
Yeah, which is always fun to see. Savage tries to revive Hebner. While he's out there, Perfect and Flair get in the ring, and Flair hits Warrior with some brass knucks while Perfect holds him. Savage gets Hebner back in the ring, hits the elbow on Warrior, and Warrior kicks out at 2. The guy's been hit with brass knucks and then Savage's finishing move. And they're having
a Warrior. He was warrioring up. He used to be a Hulk up, and then he took that move over.
He did, and that's exactly what he did next. He hulks up while Macho Man hits him. It's clothesline after clothesline on Savage. Eventually a shoulder block, press slam, running to the ropes, but Flair hits him with a chair in the back. Now Savage realizes something's going on. He goes to the top rope. Instead of hitting the elbow and ending the match, he jumps to the outsides, caught by Flair with a chair, and it leads to a count out and Warrior winning, but not getting the title.
So the funny part about when he jumps out, before he even lands to hit Flair, Bobby the Brain Heenan, the spoiler, he loves spoiling stuff. Before he lands, he goes, he's blown out his knee. He's blown out his knee for sure. Before he lands. I was like, because it just instantly reminded me of when Hogan comes out for Bash at the Beach, 96 with the NWO. And he goes, whose side is he on? Just ruins everything, good old Bobby the Brain.
So Flair and Perfect then destroy Savage outside the ring until Warrior grabs the chair, chases them off. Fink announces Warrior's the winner, but Savage as still champ, and they both, Warrior grabs the belt, gives it to Savage, and lifts his arm and helps into the back. And what an awe ending.
Yeah, white hot baby faces. The crowd loved it. Everyone cheered. Everyone's happy. Boo. For me, I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But the shittest thing about the whole thing was the Perfect. It just ruined, as we talked about, it just ruined it. Like, which side is he? If they were going to do which side is he on, Perfect should have started the match out there in the ring. So, or by the side or at the commentary or something like that. So that way you wouldn't have known. Once the match started and it goes for so long, and then he comes out with Ric Flair, it ruined any whose side is he going to be on?
Yeah, it did. And there was a reason for this schmozzle, right?
Of course.
The original plan was to have Warrior turn heel and beat Savage for the belt with the help of Flair and Perfect. Right before the event, Warrior went to Vince and refused to turn heel, and Vince had to rebook the whole match. It ended up leading to Vince firing Warrior. I think it would have been a very different path for Warrior if they had gone with this. A heel champion Warrior.
When you think about it, it would have been what Hogan did with the NWO, essentially, because Hogan never did it. He would have done it before Hogan, and it would have been, I don't know if, it probably changed the history a little bit, because would have Hogan done it with the NWO? Because such a white-hot babyface to do that had never really happened.
Absolutely. It would have been huge. I mean, who's to say whether Warrior would have then, actually tried to learn to wrestle or not, but it would have given him.
We're both NFL fans. You give them the ball, they got to run with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He could have been like Zeke a couple of years ago and kept dropping it. You never know.
So I mean, there was a reason so they didn't get the finish right.
No.
But what could Vince do? I gave it a 1 count. It was saved by all the shenanigans for me. The shenanigans and the entrances.
The word I wrote down so many times was shenanigans.
Yeah.
But okay, then. Well, who had the better career?
Savage.
Yeah, by a mile. But like we just said, Warrior could have been Warrior was huge.
It was a turning point in Warrior's career.
Yeah.
And
Savage was around before Warrior. He was around a lot long after.
Yeah.
And yeah, he had more WrestleMania moments. He had main event moments everywhere throughout the day. Obviously, Warrior had the one against Hogan, but
Savage for me.
Randy by far.
For sure. Unless you count Ric Flair. Then it's a different story.
Woo!
We then see Mean Gene giving a quick interview with Flair and Perfect afterwards. Perfect says the plan was to be in Flair's corner, and they're aligned now. My favorite part of this was Mr. Perfect calling Gene Divot Head.
Yeah, he did call him that, yeah. Actually, notice one thing is, remember when Perfect used to always come out, he used to do the old chewing gum spit and slap?
Yeah.
That was his thing. If you watch the match, when he's standing in front of the hard camera on the other side, you can actually see him turn around and go and do it while he's still on the outside during the match. I thought that was pretty cool.
It is classic. I have seen that live in person once. I saw Mr. Perfect against Dennis Rodman.
Wow, that would have been a quality match.
Very quality. We then move on to Kamala with Kim Chi and Harvey Whippleman against The Undertaker with Paul Bearer. Now, Kamala's first out. My first thought was this wouldn't fly these days.
What, the gimmick?
The gimmick.
Yeah.
He's a cannibal? It just feels very wrong.
Yeah. Well, I've read some things and I've heard him say it, but Jerry Lawler created that character down in Memphis at one stage, apparently. And then when they brought him in, they did heaps of just vignettes and stuff like that. Never wrestled for ages, and that's how they built up the character. And I thought that was a bit weird. Definitely right. It wouldn't fly today. Yeah.
So he's accompanied to the ring by Harvey Whippleman, who would end up being the first male to hold the Women's World Championship.
He was that kind of guy, because he goes, what did he say? Get out of the ring, you little man, or something. I'll belt you. And you just hear Vince go, little man. But he was tiny.
And we also see him with Kim Chi, better known as Steve Lombardi or the Brooklyn Brawler.
Brooklyn Brawler, yeah, I did notice that. Well, I looked it up. I was like, who was Kim Chi? And I was like, wow, there you go.
And I was thinking before, just while Kamala was coming out, I was like, interesting having a taker match. It's kind of like the popcorn match, right? But when that gong hit, the crowd just went crazy.
Yeah, there was a couple of young guys fully dressed like. Well, he only debuted probably 10 months earlier at Survivor Series, so he'd gone already to babyface side within that time.
Gave me hairs on the back of the neck standing up too. It just had, even back then, it had the Undertaker vibe.
Yeah, you've seen Undertaker live, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Like when that gong hits, the room goes black. You just
does it. It feels like the air goes like
talking
cold.
About it now. I'm getting goosebumps. Yeah. Like I'm waiting for him to pop up behind me or something. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. I just love though that we're both on that same thing. Like I've literally written down Kim Chi was played by Steve Lombardi, better known as like everything that you're saying. I've already got it written down. Like just in sync.
It's so much fun going kind of back into finding out who everyone was and
and who they became or whatever else. Like
exactly. So when Taker's gong goes off, he appears on the back of a hearse, which was awesome, led by Paul Bearer. He's got the urn. The match is just filled with Taker classics, the old school rope walk, the flipping clothesline, choke slam. Just as he's about to give the tombstone, Kim Chi comes to the ring, hits Taker with his hat. Kamala gets DQ'd, and Kamala then beats him up and splashes Taker twice. And then he sits up.
Does the sit up, yeah. And they shit themselves.
That's the end of the match. But it was building. So look, I gave it a 1 count. It was all Taker except for the schmozzy finish.
Yeah, I gave it half a count. It was, as you said, it was a match filler, popcorn match, essentially, as you called it. The entrances were longer than the match.
Yeah.
But obviously that happens a lot with Taker.
Look, and I mean, for the ending, they were building up to what was going to be the coffin match against Kamala. So that made sense to me.
Which happened at Survivor Series?
It did, yes.
Yeah.
Best career, Benny?
Oh, Kamala by far. Yeah, obviously Undertaker. Undertaker's probably had the best career of anybody ever.
Is there anyone except for Flair that maybe you could say who had the better career? I mean, I don't even know you can say with Flair.
No, well, that's what I mean. Like, Flair had a great career, but he had some, like, real bad lulls and some shit going on and whatever else. Like, Taker's just always been brilliant. He knew the right times to leave the company for that 8 months or 7 months or whatever else, and then come back. But he'd reinvent himself. Obviously, he did the American Badass, which was a massive change. But he changed himself a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, even some was forced on him, like with when Mabel sat on his face and he broke his cheekbone, he wore the mask, and that went through that purple glove stage, and just those little idiosyncrasies that he changed with the teardrop tattoo at stages, and then the ministry. Like, he just always reinvented himself.
He did, and if you haven't checked it out, go watch The Last Ride on the WWE Network.
Brilliant,
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So now we're getting into the main event. We see Bulldog in the back saying he's fought 2 years to get this shot. When he gets into the ring with Bret, he doesn't know him.
That was a terrible promo, by the way.
But he hopes the families will get back together after the match. We then see Bret Hart with Mean Gene. Hart says he worked well under pressure. He introduced Bulldog to his wife, and he wouldn't be where he is in the WWF without him, and that he's responsible for all the family tension. Now, I didn't think Hart was a great promo. That's just me, but I thought he did a great job here.
That was a brilliant promo because he put over Bulldog before the match even started.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a heel promo, but it was.
Yeah.
Like, the way Bulldog did his promo, it sounded like he's like, well, we're going to fight, but then we'll be friends. And then Bret Hart was like, no, bad luck. It is what it is. And he was propping him, but making himself sound like shit.
Now, it was a great promo, except for the last line. That Bulldog's going to wake up in the dungeon of Windsor Castle.
Yes. When he said he's going to wake up in the dungeon, he should have just cut it there.
I know, and I thought that's where he was, and then he said of Windsor Castle.
Windsor Castle, yeah. They had to get in as many London and England things as they could get in.
They did. I mean, and that's what it was back then. They wanted to stick it up, and they did a good job of it.
That's the way it was.
And we saw that next up with some Highland bagpipers. And who else?
The great Roddy.
Highland bagpipers, but Roddy Piper.
Do you reckon he was actually playing them?
I think he was, and he sounded pretty good.
As I started watching the mouth, and his mouth was moving at the same time as the other guys.
Yeah.
His hands looked like they were playing it. So I was like, I don't know whether he was faking it or what, but I thought it was good to see him out there.
He sounded pretty good.
Good pop.
We then see a quick interview in the crowd with Diana Hart-Smith, Bulldog's wife, Bret's sister, about how competitive they are with each other, and she's afraid they're going to destroy each other, but she doesn't care who wins.
Yeah, you say quick interview. I don't know if it was that quick, to be honest.
No,
but like that dragged on quite a bit.
It did feel a bit weird. So then it's time for the main event. First up, British Bulldog, huge pop, led to the ring by Lennox Lewis. It had, and it made me think of this because Lennox Lewis was there, it had a big fight feel.
Yeah. Especially being outdoors, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And because it had gotten dark by that stage as well, like it just really had that.
It had. What a great event to go to. Bret Hart then makes his way out with the IC title. Things get underway. It's a very technical match to start with, some great back and forth. Bret had the early advantage, used some textbook heel wrestling, used the braids, a lot of sleepers, not letting go of holds, textbook heel stuff. After a double clothesline, Bret locks in a sharpshooter. Now, this was an interesting thing. Apparently, this was the first time he'd used this style of sharpshooter where he kind of started hooking him while they're both on the ground.
Yeah, I seen that. It was weird.
Apparently, he woke up one night and thought of it and tested it on his wife at 3 a.m. in the morning to see if it would work. So
because I thought he was going for the figure 4 at first until Bobby the Brain Heenan, of course, ruins it again and says, "Oh, he's going for the sharpshooter from the ground." And I was like, "What?"
So yeah, true wrestling wife helped him with that one. So he locks in the sharpshooter. Bulldog gets the ropes. Bret goes for a sunset flip to try for the pin. Bulldog counters into a pin for himself for the 3 count.
That was the letdown for me.
Yeah.
Sunset flip for a main event of SummerSlam.
Yeah, I can say. I mean, I gave it a 2 count. I thought it was a great match, and I think the point was that everyone knew who was going to win it, right?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
It kind of surprised me how he won it, so that was the surprise for me.
That's a fair way to look at it, then. Yeah, it diminished it. I mean, if that was the IC title match in the middle of the card, sunset flip, fair enough, but it was just such a grandiose event.
Yeah.
So he got the pop, he won. You know, it was the right result, as we've said. 2 count for me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that just sort of diminished it a little bit for me.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, Bulldog offers his hand to Bret. Bret almost leaves. He gets showered with booze. Ends up shaking his hand and hugging him. And Diana gets in the ring, and it's all hugs all around, fireworks going off.
Lennox gets back in the ring with the flag. Did you see that? It was just pompous. And then if you look, the fireworks were going off, and they had like the British flag up there. And at one stage, one of the fireworks went off, and I thought it was going to catch on fire. I was like, this would have been like, it would have ruined them. Absolutely ruined them. But they cut the scene, so I don't know if it did catch on fire or not, but it looked like it was going to catch on fire. I thought that was pretty funny.
But I mean, obviously they got the finish right. Bulldog was always going over. What the interesting part is the match almost didn't happen.
Really?
The reports are that Davey Boy had been on a bit of a nose candy bender. Some reports say it was cocaine. Some reports say he'd been smoking crack cocaine with Jim the Anvil Neidhart in the few days leading up to SummerSlam. And Bret
say with the Nasty Boys as well from earlier in the night.
Right. Bret couldn't contact him, so they almost pulled the match. When he got to the arena, he didn't remember any of the match, none of the spots, nothing. So Bret had to call the entire match on the fly out in the ring, which
if anyone's going to do it,
from the amazing match they put on, you would not have known. It was a classic as far as it goes, back in those days.
Definitely.
Bret has said that carrying Bulldog to that great match on such a massive stage is one of his proudest achievements as a wrestler. So
he's propping himself. Bret hates blowing smoke up his own ass. I love him to death, but he hates blowing smoke.
But yeah, I thought that was certainly, if just watching the pay-per-view, you would not have known any of that went on.
No, definitely not.
So they did a great job of it.
As you said, they definitely got the result right. Considering Bret was going to go on to win the title, 6 months later?
Yeah.
Probably less.
I can only imagine the real tension after that in the family.
Oh, backstage,
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. But
Stu wouldn't have been happy.
They ended it on a high note, and it was a great pay-per-view in England. So that's it. That's it for SummerSlam 92. We hope you enjoyed our retro recap. And look, a special shout out to Nick Opalewski from New Haven, Michigan, for suggesting SummerSlam 92 as our retro recap. Appreciate that, Nick. Hope you enjoyed it. Look, make sure you follow us on Twitter at 3CountPod, Facebook at 3CountPod, Instagram at 3CountPodcast. Send us any suggestions you might have for a retro recap or just the show in general. We'll be back next week with our SummerSlam preview. And I think we're going to have another fun fantasy draft to do with SummerSlam.
And I might even try and get some picks right for SummerSlam, after last time you absolutely railed me. But that's all right. It's all right. I'm going to come back. We've had some good comebacks that are just sort of lurking there that we'll talk about next week. A couple of title changes in the works as well. So I think SummerSlam's going to be good this year. I
think so too. I'm very much looking for it.
Literally this time next week. It'll already happened. So
that's it. It's going to be on a Sunday for us, which is fun.
So keep your ear out because our preview will be coming in the next few days. We'll go back pretty quickly.
That's right. Thanks again, Benny, for joining us.
Thanks, Dill. Have a good one, man.
All right. And we'll see you again next time on the 3 Count Podcast.